This is Old Line Farmer Radio, a Maryland Farm Bureau production, helping you achieve your best farm future.
What's up, Old Line Farmer Radio? My name is Kendall Abrazizi, and today we're in a very special place. I'd like to introduce our special guest, Congresswoman April McClain Delaney.
Hello, how are you? Welcome to Maryland's 6th Congressional Office here in Longworth. So very happy to have you here.
Thank you.
And I know you've been here once or twice before. So
thank you. Yeah, we're excited to be here today. So this weekend, or I guess it's not weekend, this week, we actually have presidents from all across the state visiting and seeing some briefings from American Farm Bureau, and getting some more information. And then today we do have lots of Hill visits going on. Right. So I'm excited for you to meet some of our other presidents and members later today.
Bring them on in. And I love to meet with our farmers. And I met with the Corn Growers Association yesterday.
Awesome.
So I'm the one Maryland rep that's on ag. And, I really love being on the ag committee because they are doing just a wide diversity of different things right now, from crypto, but we're trying to get through a skinny farm bill, as you know, but I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah, we've got lots of points to talk about, and I think all of those are on there. I did want to touch on, you met with the corn growers, but your background's not in corn growing. You do have an ag background, right?
I do have an ag background. I am a 4th generation Idahoan, even though I represent Maryland, and I have lived in Maryland for 23 years. But I grew up an Idaho potato farmer's daughter in Buell, Idaho. And my dad was head of the potato growers of Idaho in the 70s and early 80s. So yeah, I grew up in a rural community of 3,500, and I feel very blessed to have had that perspective on farming, but what it means to live in a small community that really has each other's back. And I think there's a lot of challenges that our rural and farming communities are facing, not only the 6th, but across this whole country. So that has been a big focus of mine in Congress, and furthering economic opportunity, but also understanding the needs of our farmers at this very dynamic time.
Well, that kind of sets you up in a good position, especially with your ag background and growing up. You kind of probably have a bit of a sense of camaraderie with people from the 6th District as well, because a lot of there is very rural.
It's very rural. I have, I'm a freshman. So, since I swore in January, I've met with all 5 of our farm bureaus. I've sat down with them all. I've asked about their, what are their biggest priorities, particularly raising up, what do they want in the Farm Bill? And then also with the HR 1, the reconciliation bill that passed in July, how SNAP and cuts to nutritional assistance really impacts not only farmers selling into the Farm Bill, but also many of the recipients within the state, because for every dollar that you put into SNAP, $1.50 came back to our rural communities in farmers selling into it, in our truckers, in our grocery stores. So that has been a big issue for me in this Congress, but also the other parts of the Farm Bill, because we have not had a passed Farm Bill since 2018, as you well know.
Yes, we are in need of a Farm Bill. I think you'll hear that from anyone across the agricultural industry. I did want to go back. I know that you said that you went and visited the farm bureaus. Mm-hmm. I was very excited to attend those tours and conversations with you.
You were very helpful.
Well, thank you. It was a great time. I'm glad that we could get you, seeing some production agriculture. I know just last month we kind of put you to work on a farm. Can you share with our members?
So it was in Allegheny County.
It was.
T.R. Robinette,
yes.
I believe. And, he's been very involved with the Farm Bureau there for a long time. But I said, so what are your priorities? And he goes, well, let's go see some of the cattle. And literally, I sat in the back of a pickup truck and threw stalks of corn off the back of it, feeding all of his herd. And it was pretty fun, but he had some really interesting points that I think actually were also brought up in the hearing yesterday on specialty crop insurance. I actually asked some questions at the specialty crop hearing that we had yesterday. And, he raised the need for research, because he was very concerned about a lot of, pests and how we really have to think about how our cattle but also our crops are being impacted, and that many of the cuts to our research at USDA and other places, and I'm very concerned obviously at BARC, we have a Greenbelt USDA facility that's going to be closed, and so that was a big issue in terms of fighting back for research dollars, and I think our farmers really want that. And then two, like a stable legal workforce. I keep hearing that from many of our different farmers, particularly our orchards, and I think that we had that when we were in Montgomery County and Frederick, talking about, Lucas orchards and even Butler's orchard, in terms of, a lot of the pickers, they know how to do it, and many of the same people of seasonal workers have been coming for years and finding a streamlined process to have these seasonal workers come in.
That's the key that we hear is the streamline.
And I just think a stable legal workforce is really important. And that really is putting a lot of inflationary pressures, because if you don't have that, many of the farmers are starting to need to pay maybe 150%, 1.5 pay for overtime, or to bring in more expensive workers that are not as experienced, and that is increasing their costs, along with some of these tariffs, whether it be increased tariffs for machinery because of aluminum and different things. Yesterday in the hearing, many of the farmers brought up that things like peat moss or burlap can only be procured from overseas, and the tariffs on those are really driving a lot of pressures. Inflationary pressures, I think the tariffs are really hitting hard. Some of the research, R&D, and then obviously workforce. So these are all big issues that I'm going to be working on. And of course we need, crop insurance that is affordable and tailored. So those are big priorities that I've heard about. But I welcome everybody to come in and talk to me if they want anything else.
Well, I love that, and I definitely think our members are going to continue to come through your door and have conversations with you. Let's jump back and talk a little bit more about the tariffs and trades. As I'm sure you know, farming can be, there's a lot of uncertainty, and it can be a little difficult sometimes. I'm sure on your visits across Maryland in the ag industry and in District 6, you've seen that our farmers really care about what they're doing, and it's not just their job, it's their livelihood and their passions. So with that, I think the tariffs and trades, there might be a little uncertainty, and it might make people a little nervous. Are you hearing anything, or what are you working on? What kind of insight can you provide?
Sure. I think the hard part is that tariffs in general, just lifting up, even other than the ag industry, I think that they are actually having a really terrible impact in terms of increasing prices, because when there's ever economic uncertainty, as there is, businesses don't have the ability to build into their model what those things are going to be, and so there's a lot of perhaps delays in hiring and bringing on new workers, but also in terms of production, which makes obviously prices increase across the board. With respect to agriculture, I think the hardest thing is that there is a lot of red light, green light, and economic uncertainty about which countries are being impacted. And some of our greatest friends in Canada and Mexico are being greatly impacted, which is some of our biggest trading partners in agriculture. So I think that markets are drying up for overseas, and it's making it, they're not able to sell the same way. And also there's inflationary pressures for things that they need to produce. So all in all, I think that we need to kind of come to a conclusion as to how we're going to deal with these tariffs, and make sure that there is more certainty, or maybe eliminate some of them, so that there is better access for overseas for the crops, because we do help feed the world.
Exactly. Is there any legislation, agricultural specific, going on right now that you think would impact that?
Well, I think that the problem is yesterday in the Rules Committee, there was actually part of a kind of last-minute amendment put in that no members of Congress could actually push back against the administration until March on tariffs. And this is a problem, because tariff-making authorities really should set within Article 1 powers of really Congress. I mean, we should have a say in how these tariffs are being implemented. Of course, and also tariffs, trade is a very complex and sophisticated and nuanced negotiation. That's why we have the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative. That's why we have commerce and our export control. And so when we have an administration that is very willy-nilly about how these are going up and down, and there's uncertainty, it makes our allies and our partners a little bit distrustful of what we're out there. And so I think it does have an impact. But can we do anything right now? We are trying to have a say and to assert control over what tariffs and how they can be implemented, and to ask that there's kind of a go slow approach.
I think the go slow approach is definitely something that you'll hear from the agriculture industry as well. Shifting gears a little bit, other legislation. I know you touched on SNAP earlier. Let's talk Farm Bill and Skinny Farm Bill. What are your thoughts? What are you hearing? What kind of insight can you provide in terms of that?
So I actually have a pretty good relationship with Chairman Thompson, our ranking leader, and then our the House Majority Leader on Ag, and with Angie Craig. And I think that there is some bipartisanship. I think we really want to make sure that nothing's been done since 2018. The biggest things I'm hearing that they want in the Farm Bill are really crop insurance and a safety net for our farmers. And so they're looking at tailored but also affordable crop insurance. As I said, even though it's outside the purview, this immigration issues and of a stable legal workforce, and so are there going to be certain provisions within there? We don't know. And then really looking at some rural and economic development issues, vis-a-vis maybe even rural broadband, or that's some of the things I'm trying to insert on there, but also, how can we have access to capital and a better way for our farmers to have an ability to finance in a way in which they really are not left behind. So those are some of the biggest issues I'm hearing about. We have not gotten to text, but I'm hearing from many of our farmers and actually agricultural companies, and even the corn growers yesterday, that they said if we could just do what was proposed and almost passed last year, that would be a great start. Of course, SNAP will not be in there, although we would like to, of course, push back a little bit and make sure that some of that might come back in at a later date. I also sponsored, I should say, a piece of legislation most recently, and it's called the Protecting Agricultural Borrowers Act.
I think you're jumping us right into my next question. Tell me more.
It's so important. Well, my background, if you know, was I was a communications attorney, and I spent most of my life, fighting online safety, kids' digital literacy, and helping bridge the digital divide. But I think it's really important that our farmers' financial information and personal information is protected when they give it to the USDA, or actually to any government agency. I think when we as individuals give our information to the IRS or the Social Security or USDA, or even our health information, which should be protected by HIPAA, that information is not then given to non-agency employees or efficiency employees, and maybe fed to third-party contractors into AI without consent. Because my concern is, if you are giving that information to USDA as a farmer, it should be protected and safeguarded, and that we don't expect that it's going to be given to outside parties or used for things for which it was not intended or what you intended it to be used for. And so I put in this piece of legislation, and there has been a lot of support. I'm trying to get some Republican co-sponsors as well, because at its core, I think we all want our financial information and our personal information, particularly if it's health or tax information, protected. There could also, be incredible fraud or security issues as well. So I'm lifting that up, and I think it's a big issue for our government right now, particularly with all of these AI models and third-party contractors involved.
Yeah, definitely. Can you maybe break down some of the specifics of that, and what would that really mean for for our members and our farmers in agriculture?
Well, say if you're a farmer and you have a grant or you are requesting some assistance, that if you're giving your tax returns, if you're disclosing personal information about yourself, that information would be safeguarded as a fiduciary, much like if you give it to a bank or if you traditionally gave it to the IRS, that was kept there for that purpose, and that if it was going to be given to someone else, that you would have the ability to have consent, notice and consent. And if you don't consent, then just like HIPAA, if you don't consent, then that cannot be accessed by a third party.
Right. Okay, awesome. I love that. And I know that we're running out of time today. Just a couple more things I want to touch on. I know that a lot of the times when I've talked to you previously, you do touch a lot on bipartisan support and relationships. Can you kind of share a little bit background, where we're looking? How can we kind of support bipartisan approaches, not only to just Farm Bill and other legislation, but especially in this environment that's going on right now?
Well, it's interesting. I'll give you a great example of bipartisanship. I have been working on FEMA funding, in terms of, we were denied FEMA funding for many of the flooding in Allegheny County. I led a letter with many of our, state, Republican and Democratic, stakeholders about how important it was that they were able to procure that funding. And I even have lifted that up to the FEMA director. And so I've, been trying to work across the aisle in a way in which really highlights that no matter what your zip code, if 5 miles away, West Virginia, same storm, same people, got their funding, we should as well. Another great example is that our fire academy in Emmitsburg, Maryland, all of the fire, instruction classes were closed. Makes no sense because obviously we have a lot of wildfires and we have a lot of first responders. I led a bipartisan letter kind of pushing back against that, but to that point, I went to, the head of the Ag Committee, Thompson, who is a Republican, and I knew he was a volunteer firefighter, and he said that doesn't make any sense, and so I think together we were able to get the reversal of that piece of that cut, and those classes were reinstated. And you know what? Sometimes you just have to be pragmatic and say, this is about the constituents, this is about the local interests. But I am leading several bipartisan bills on fire prevention for our veterans, the Deaf Blind Caucus. So, you find ways that you can work together as much as you can. And I did campaign on common sense, common ground. And so desperately try to find both.
I love that. Well, to wrap us up here today, I know that you are the first member from Maryland on the House Ag Committee in over a decade. Going into that, what were your kind of goals, expectations, and how do you think the future is going to look for you
for agriculture? I do think we are going to get a farm bill.
I love to hear that.
It might not be this year, but I'm really optimistic that we're going to try and get some sort of skinny farm bill through. And I think that there is a lot of bipartisan support for that. And we need to, because our farmers deserve it. My other interesting issue that I worked on, and people don't realize this, but the Ag Committee oversees the commodities portion of cryptocurrency. So, the Clarity Act came through, which was through financial services, but we have kind of joint with financial services. The SEC portion is through them. The commodities portion, because of our commodities and crop insurance, is through Ag. And so I have been really immersed also in how do we put bumpers and safeguards on cryptocurrency, but also allow that technology to evolve. And there's really some interesting things that can happen in the ag space with crypto as well. And then the other part is I'm just really into how can we, further connectivity, innovation, and research in the ag communities, because I think it'll make our farmers more effective. And I firmly believe that we need to be at the forefront of that in Maryland, because we have so many technology and research engines here, and that we can be a real test bed across the 6th district. My big thing is that from Montgomery County all the way to Garrett, that we're able to cross-leverage some of those resources and have some of that connectivity. And I'm really going to be doing a series of county by county convenings with different stakeholders to think about how rural communities can thrive. And I am on, a rural broadband task force that I'm heading up. I've even done some events in different counties throughout the 6th. So, I would say it's a skinny farm bill. It's really looking at ways that we can drive innovation and research, and really thinking about ways that rural economic development can better thrive. In our communities.
Well, thank you so much for your perspective and for your time. I appreciate you, Congresswoman.
My office is always open to you and to all my constituents. So
thank you so much.
They should come and visit.
Of course.